This afternoon, we are pleased to present the life of Saint Sister Maria Faustina, her vision encounter with the Lord Jesus Christ, and the creation of the divine image of Merciful Jesus portrait. Much of the story consists of direct quotations taken from the diary of Saint Sister Maria Faustina.
Dice Gesù a Sor Faustina: l'umanità non troverà pace finché non si rivolgerà con fiducia alla divina misericordia. Non è un messaggio nuovo, ma si può ritenere un dono di speciale illuminazione, un raggio di luce agli uomini e alle donne del nostro tempo.
Pope John Paul II, both in his teaching and in his personal life, strove to live and teach the message of divine mercy. As the great Mercy Pope, he wrote in an encyclical on divine mercy, and I quote, "The message of divine mercy has always been near and dear to me, which I took with me to the See of Peter, and which is, in a sense, the image of this pontificate." End quote. In his writings and homilies, he described divine mercy as the answer to the world's problems and the message of the third millennium. He beatified and canonized Sister Maria Faustina Kowalska, the nun associated with the message. And he did it in Rome and not in Poland to underscore that divine mercy is for the whole world. Ladies and gentlemen, the life of Saint Sister Maria Faustina Kowalska.
My heart overflows with great mercy for souls. If they could only understand that I am the best of fathers to them, and it is for them that the blood and water flowed from my heart, as from a fountain overflowing with mercy. For them, I dwell in the tabernacle as the King of mercy. I desire to bestow my graces upon souls, but they do not want to accept them.
Saint Sister Maria Faustina's life.
How indifferent are the
Saint
souls
Maria
to so
Faustina
much goodness,
Kowalska,
to so many
known
proofs
today
of
the
love.
world over as the
They have time for
Apostle
everything,
of the Divine Mercy,
but they have no
is
time
numbered
to
by
come to me.
theologians among
for
the
graces.
outstanding mystics of the Church. She was the third of 10 children, born into a poor and pious peasant family in Głogowiec, a village in the heart of Poland. At her baptism in the nearby parish church of Świnice Suwarskia, she was given the name Helena. From childhood, she distinguished herself by her piety, love of prayer, industriousness, and obedience, as well as by her great sensitivity to human misery. She had hardly 3 years of schooling, and at the age of 14, she left the family hearth to help her parents and to earn her own livelihood, serving as a domestic in the nearby cities of Alexandrov and Lok. When she was only 7, 2 years before her first Holy Communion, Helen already sensed in her soul the call to embrace the religious life. When later she made her desire known to her parents, they categorically did not acquiesce in her entering a convent. Because of this situation, Helen strove to stifle this divine call within her. Pressed on, however, by a vision of the suffering Christ and by the words of his reproach.
How long shall I put up with you, and how long will you keep putting me off?
Finally, on August 1st, 1925, Helen crossed the threshold of the cloister in the convent of the Congregation of Sisters of Our Lady of Mercy on Sitnia Street in Warsaw. In her diary, she declared,
It seemed to me that I had stepped into a life of paradise. A single prayer was bursting forth from my heart, one of thanksgiving.
After a few weeks, she experienced nonetheless a strong temptation to transfer to a different congregation in which there would be more time for prayer. It was then the Lord Jesus, manifesting to her his wounded and tortured face, said,
It is you who will cause me this pain if you leave this convent. It is to this place that I have called you and nowhere else. And it is here I have prepared many graces for you.
Upon her entrance to the congregation, Helen received the name Sister Maria Faustina. Her novitiate she spent in Krakow, and there, in the presence of Bishop Stanislaus Rospon, she pronounced her first religious vows. And 5 years later, she made her perpetual profession of the vows of chastity, poverty, and obedience. She was assigned to work in a number of the congregation's houses, but for a longer period in those of Krakow, Plock, and Vilnius, fulfilling the duties of cook, gardener, and doorkeeper. To all external appearances, nothing betrayed her extraordinarily rich, mystical life. She zealously went about her duties. She faithfully observed all the religious rules. She was recollected and kept silent, all the while being natural, cheerful, full of kindness, and of unselfish love of neighbor. Her entire life was concentrated on constant striving for an even fuller union with God, and on self-sacrificing cooperation with Jesus in the work of saving souls. My Jesus, she avowed in her diary.
You know that from the earliest years, I have wanted to become a great saint. That is to say, I have wanted to love you with a love so great that there would be no soul who has hitherto loved you so.
It is her diary that reveals to us the depths of her spiritual life.
An attentive reading of these records offers a picture of the high degree of her soul's union with God, the great extent of God's company keeping with her soul, as well as her efforts and struggles on the way to Christian perfection. The Lord endowed her with great graces, with the gift of contemplation, with a deep knowledge of the mystery of the mercy of God, with visions, revelations, the hidden stigmata, with the gift of prophecy, and of reading into human souls, and also with the rare gift of mystical espousals. As lavishly gifted as she was, this was what she wrote.
Neither graces nor revelations, nor raptures, nor gifts granted to a soul make it perfect, but rather the intimate union of the soul with God. My sanctity and perfection is based upon the close union of my will with the will of God.
The austere lifestyle and exhausting fast that she imposed upon herself, even before joining the congregation, weakened her organism to such an extent that already during her postulantship, it became necessary to send her to the Skilamo near Warsaw to restore her to health. Towards the end of her final year of novitiate, she was visited by unusually painful mystical experiences of the so-called dark night, and later by the spiritual and moral sufferings related to the accomplishment of the mission she was receiving from Christ the Lord. Saint Faustina laid down her life in sacrifice for sinners, and on this account she also sustained diverse sufferings, in order by means of them to come to the aid of souls. During the last years of her life, inner sufferings of the so-called passive night of the soul and bodily diseases grew in intensity. The spreading tuberculosis attached her lungs and alimentary canal. For this reason, twice she underwent several months of treatment in a hospital on Pradnik Street in Krakow. Physically ravaged, but fully mature spiritually, she died in the opinion of sanctity, mystically united with God on October 5th, 1938, hardly 33 years old, having been a religious for 13 years. Her mortal remains were laid to rest in the common tomb in the convent cemetery in Krakow, Legioniki. In 1966, during the informative process toward Sister Faustina's beatification, they were transferred to the convent chapel.
I offer people a vessel with which they are to keep coming for graces to the fountain of mercy. That vessel is the image with the inscription, Jesus, I trust in you. I want this image, which you will paint with a brush, to be solemnly blessed on the first Sunday after Easter. That Sunday it is to be the Feast of Mercy.
The image of the merciful Jesus. On February 22nd, 1931, one of the most famous apparitions in history of the Catholic Church happened in the city of Plock, Poland. There, Jesus appeared to the great saint and mystic, Maria Faustina Kowalska, an experience that the young nun describes in her diary. When I was in my cell, I saw the Lord, Jesus, clothed in a white garment, one hand raised in the gesture of a blessing. The other was touching his garment at the breast. Beneath the garment, slightly drawn aside at the breast, there were emanating two bright rays, one red and the other pale. In silence, I kept my gaze fixed on the Lord. My soul was struck with awe, but also with great joy. After Sister Faustina had remained for some time in this contemplative state of joyful wonder, Jesus spoke to her with the following words.
Paint an image according to the pattern you see, with the signature, Jesus, I trust in you. I desire that this image be venerated, first in your chapel, then throughout the world.
Sister Faustina obeyed the Lord's command with blessing and help of her spiritual director, Blessed Michael Spacco. Using his own money, this holy priest commissioned an artist, Eugene Kazaborowski, to paint the image. Of course, since no painting can fully capture the glory of the Lord as it appears to the saints, it is not surprising that after Sister Faustina saw the painting, she went to the chapel and wept with sorrow. At one point, in the midst of her tears, she cried to Jesus, "Who will paint you as beautiful as you are?" The Lord consoled her, saying,
Not in the beauty of the color, nor on the brush lies the greatness of this image, but in my grace.
that Jesus speaks of, this grace that makes the divine mercy image so great. The Lord himself explains,
I promise that the soul that will venerate this image will not perish. I also promise victory over its enemies here on earth, especially at the hour of death. I myself would defend it as my own glory. By the means of this image, I shall be granting many graces to souls, so let every soul have access to it. Let the rays of grace enter your soul. They bring with them light, warmth, and life.
the meaning of the image. John 20:19-23. The image of divine mercy did not come out of nowhere. Its basis is a resurrection passage from the Gospel of John, a passage that's read every year at Mass on Divine Mercy Sunday, a week after Easter.
The two rays denote blood and water. The pale ray stands for the water which makes the soul righteous. The red ray stands for the blood which is the life of souls. These two rays issued forth from the very depth of my agonized heart, were opened by a lance on the cross. Jesus, I trust in you. The graces of my mercy are drawn by the means of one vessel only, and that is trust. The more souls trust, the more it will receive. When a soul approaches me with trust, I will fill it with such an abundance of graces that it cannot contain them within itself, but radiate them to all over souls.
The gaze. If you look closely, you can see that
Souls
Jesus'
that trust
gaze is
boundlessly
not directly at the
are a
viewer
great comfort to
in
me,
the portrait.
because I pour all
Rather,
the
while
treasures
his
of my
eyes
graces
look
into
towards
them.
us, they face downward. How do we know that Jesus' gaze in the divine mercy image is of great love? Because he tells us as much. In the diary of Faustina, we read,
My gaze from this image is like my gaze from the cross.
The second image of the merciful Jesus. The original image of merciful Jesus portrait, described by St. Faustina, was finished in 1933 as a result of World War II and the annexation of Lithuania by the USSR. The image of merciful Jesus became inaccessible to pilgrims for several decades. Despite numerous dangers, it was hidden in the attic, many times rolled up, stored in inappropriate conditions, dampness and freezing, and terribly restored. But thanks to divine providence, the painting miraculously survived the era of communism. In 1943, 10 years after painting the first image of Merciful Jesus in Vilnius, and 5 years after the death of Sister Faustina in Krakow, a fine painter, Adolf Heiler, came to the congregation of the Sisters of Our Lady of Mercy in Krakow. He desired to paint some image as a gift for the monastic chapel, as a token of gratitude for saving his family from the war. The sisters suggested painting the image of the merciful Jesus. Without a doubt, the image painted by Adolf Heiler contributed to a great extent to the growth of the Divine Mercy devotion. This is confirmed by testimonials of the graces received through its intercession. But its popularity did not detract from the value of the original image painted in Vilnius, precisely according to the guidelines given by Lord Jesus. This image finally reached a time when it could be worthily exposed at the high altar of the Sanctuary of the Divine Mercy in Vilnius, where, surrounded by the prayers of the sisters and visiting pilgrims, it has been worshipped publicly ever since.
Please join us in reciting a closing prayer from the diary of Sister Maria Faustina. I remind you, my daughter, that as often as you hear the clock strike the third hour, immerse yourself completely in my mercy, adoring and glorifying it. Invoke its omnipotence for the whole world, and particularly for poor sinners. For at that moment, mercy was opened wide for every soul. In this hour, you can obtain everything for yourself and for others for the asking. It was the hour of grace for the whole world. Mercy triumphed over justice.
Być może dlatego Jezus wybrał właśnie Faustynę, prostą dziewczynę, prostą siostrę zakonną, żeby pokazać, że każdy człowiek ma przystęp do Niego, że On chce okazać swoje miłosierdzie każdemu bez względu na to, kim jest, jakie ma wykształcenie, jakie pełni obowiązki, z jakiego środowiska pochodzi, że Jezus chce być blisko każdego człowieka.